So you've completed the story puzzle for Tomas Rivera, but now what we want to do is we want to work on the retelling and the author's purpose for this story. First of all, we learned when we were reading the dot that the author's purpose has to deal with the lesson that is learned in the story. What lesson does the writer want us to learn? Well, let me do my retelling, and then that's going to help point us out to what the lesson is that we should be learning. So, first of all, Tomas Rivera was a young man who his family went from place to place, and they helped to harvest crops. And he loved to listen to his grandfather's stories. One day his grandfather said, "Oh, let me tell you, there's a whole bunch of stories in a library." So he takes Tomas to the library, and Tomas finds all these wonderful books. He reads tons and tons of books until he starts to write his own stories, and he shares them with other people. Tomas eventually becomes a teacher. But when he's a teacher, he also continues to write, and he writes stories about people that harvested crops that went from place to place. He wrote about what he remembered from when he was younger and about the people that still do those jobs. Now, he's a library named after him because Tomas was such a strong believer in having libraries and being able to give the books to other people. So, that would be an example of the retelling where I'm using the pictures and I'm telling the story in my own words, what I remember, telling you the most important details. The second part is we want to figure out what's the author's purpose. Well, the lesson that I learned is that Tomas learned how important books were. And his love of books helped him to become a creator, a writer of books that told the story of people like him from when he was younger. And so why did the author decide to write this book? Tomas is kind of unusual because a lot of us don't go from place to place gathering crops for other people. And this allowed us to get this idea of, oh, there's someone there's somebody that has lived this life. They learned a lot, and now they're sharing that knowledge that they learned through books with other people. And they're writing books. Look how far that this young man and how much he had to work, because remember, that was a big idea, is about how difficult the work was, but also the fact that he continued to write and teach, and now that he writes about people and how hard they work still. So maybe the author's purpose is to tell us the story of Tomas Rivera, to share that information about his very interesting life. Maybe the author's purpose was for us to learn a lesson about how working hard can help us to be and do great things. Think about it. Tomas must have done a lot of great things that have a library named after him. That's pretty cool. So remember that we want to not only figure out the author's purpose, but we want to explain the reason we think that. And so maybe if I was saying that the author's purpose was to write a book and help us to learn more about Tomas Rivera and what he has done, I would say that's because he tells us about the different important parts of Tomas's life. Maybe if I want to explain that I think the author's purpose was to show that working hard can get you very far, then I would say it showed that Tomas continued to work really hard and he read a lot. He became educated, so he did a lot of hard work. He had 2 jobs where he was a teacher and a writer, and that helps me to see that he's worked hard, and that's the lesson that I can learn from this story. So, that's what I want you to do. Tell me, what do you think the author's purpose is? And I know this is challenging because it's what we think, gathered from the bits and pieces of what we tell when we're listening to the story, when we're reading the story. So give it a shot. I know you can do it.